Hello and welcome back to CAIRNCAST. That was very loud. I'm gonna start my timer because we're trying to keep things fairly succinct, aren't we? I'm here with Anna.
Hi.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Anna and I'm operations manager at Cairngorm.
Cairngorm Coffee. What is the brand name? Cairngorm Coffee Roasters or Cairngorm Coffee?
I do get confused when I'm typing in like business name on new applications. I'm like, Cairngorm Coffee Roasters?
Nobody
Cairngorm?
knows. Nobody knows anymore.
No.
So we've kept it kind of relatively vague, so it's harder to find us online. It's a very, very clever tactic. Today we're speaking about something super interesting, which is something we discuss. In fact, a lot of these topics that we're trying to discuss on the podcast are things that we regularly speak about in the roastery. And this one is one which I've been harking on about quite a lot. Which probably gives you a sense of our mission statement for the year. But what does the customer really want? But it's usually more like, what does the customer actually?
I think it's tough in January. Like, nobody wants to do anything in January. And
they don't want to break the mold, the current mold.
And I think that's why we're maybe questioning it a lot right now, because it's like nobody wants to spend money. Nobody wants to go out and have a good time. Yeah,
100%. There's a big Edinburgh Eat Out Edinburgh thing coming through.
Oh yeah.
At the moment, not an Eat Out to help out, but a
similar thing to get people
less COVID, which is good. So I suppose the kind of thought process when we're asking what does the customer really want is probably split into two aspects. There's wholesale B2B selling, but also in store as well in our cafes. It's quite interesting for us to understand, what does the average consumer coming through our door, like what are they looking for? And I think probably the reality is they're all looking for something slightly different, which makes it quite challenging. But I suppose us being in the position in the business where we can make decisions, it's trying to get as big a brushstroke as we can, try and impact the kind of preferences of the most people. Should we start with in-store or do you want to start with wholesale?
Maybe in-store.
Okay.
I think.
So I've got a note here which says variety versus consistency, which is in reference to, does the person walking through our door seek a very consistent offer, a consistent experience every time they visit, or are they looking for something slightly different every time, wanting variety, different coffees, maybe a rotating menu? It's tough to know.
Yeah, I guess you always talk about like the grilled cheese. People want the grilled cheese, and that's consistent, and that's been consistent for 10 years almost.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, in terms of coffee, I think there's definitely a niche market for people that want to try something different every time. Mm-hmm. And I think we do hit that in Melville for sure. With like different options, we're trying to get that sorted in Bonnie and Wild now as well.
It's interesting, like both those examples kind of speak to having an element of consistency, but also an element of variety.
Yeah, exactly.
So actually slightly...
You need to do a bit of both.
And I think there are like core things. I'm very passionate about the grilled cheese because I just think there's people do want to come back and experience that. I don't know why. It's like if something's, I'm not suggesting it's cult status, but that's maybe getting massively ahead of myself there. But
you do get reviews saying like, come back for it every year at the Edinburgh Fringe or something. Yeah. So like, I think you are warranted to say that.
There you go. Heard it here first. The cult grilled cheese. But yeah, I think coffee is generally probably the area that cafes usually want to have fun. Usually the area where they start to get maybe bored or they want to experiment with lots of different things, because coffee is such an exciting product. There are so many different options, varieties being one, varietals, but like processing methods, different farms, different stories from those different farms. It's quite easy to want to experiment with lots of different things. I think our approach has been interesting that we've managed to kind of mitigate some of that excitement by offering the guilty pleasure as like our milk, and then allow ourselves to have a lot of fun with the rest of the stuff. But yeah, do you think that there's something to be said for, I mean, if you think back to like Starbucks, like I don't know what their blend is called, but apparently it's quite, it's like a secret thing where it's like it never changes. It's always the same. They're always striving for consistency. And you probably get a huge proportion of their custom who, if they came back and it changed, they would be slightly disappointed or would be confused. Would you think that would be fair?
I don't know. I don't drink coffee in Starbucks.
It's like you say you don't drink coffee, isn't it? Wait a minute. Hang on a second.
Yeah, I don't know. I think as long as it's consistently good, I don't think people would complain. But then I think older people are quite, like, they notice change more.
Yeah.
And they see it as a negative.
Is that because they've been drinking it for longer?
Yeah, maybe. Well, it'll be us soon.
Almost getting older than others. Here we go. Yeah, that is interesting. I just generally, the reason we're having this conversation is because I regularly now wake up in a day and I'm like questioning everything. I'm like, what? I don't know what people want. I genuinely not sure.
I definitely think people want more than a coffee these days. Like, they want an experience. They want to go out to a cute little coffee shop, take little videos, put it on their TikTok, and just, like, having a good coffee is not gonna, like, sell all of that, is it? Like, you need to have a really nice space. You need to have awesome staff. You have to have a nice selection of baked goods or a good menu. So I guess that's variety. Like,
do you think there's an age divide then, again, based on the loyalty of, like, a cafe environment? Because I do feel like young people, maybe it's like so, get myself cancelled again, being very general here. But, like, you know, the people who are maybe more in sync with the likes of TikTok probably do get value out of portraying that they are experiencing a wider range of things.
yeah,
Compared to maybe old people who are literally like, I don't care if you know if I've been into 5 different coffee shops this week, I like this coffee.
Yeah, I need the caffeine.
Yeah. I hope people don't get offended by that. But should we go on to the wholesale customers?
Yeah.
Because I think this is a really interesting one. The comment I've written here, I mean, again, it's like, where does the customer, in both instances, where does the customer seek value? And to an extent, I think the specialty coffee industry, its currency is trying to express the value on quality. But for a lot of people, the value is probably other things, like clean toilets or a very high level of service or nice environment. Quite often, I think it's probably price as well. It's very hard to hit all of these markers. If you think of quality, service, and price, in a wholesale setting, if it's offering very high quality coffee, it's hard for that to be cheap. Equally, if you're adding a lot of service, like training or whatever else, like cuppings and all these things, again, it's hard for that to be cheap. It's like you almost have to cherry pick 2 out of the 3, which is a challenge, I find. And I wonder if, you know, Hannah was saying earlier, you know, another thing that people may value is the brand. And, like, I think that probably is one of the factors that we are quite conscious of, and I think a lot of specialty coffee roasters are conscious of, is how the brand is portrayed and the value that has for a customer. Like, I guess in terms of brand, like, everyone wants to be drinking cool stuff. Like, you obviously, again, going back to the Starbucks thing, you're literally like, what are you talking about? Why are you mentioning Starbucks? So uncool.
I know.
But there's probably a lot of people who don't care. But I think as an industry, we probably do think the brand is extremely important. I don't know. I just don't know anymore where I see the value. Like, I don't know what the customer wants. I think they probably want everything, which is very challenging.
Yeah, I think from a, like, business owner perspective of having a coffee shop and getting coffee in, I think they want, someone that's, like, a good brand that people will notice on the shelves of, like, oh, that's Cairngorm. And I think it's cool that we've got our shops as well, because people have experiences in shops and then they can talk about that. But yeah, I think convenience, people, like, business owners have enough to do without having to, like, you know, get an order late and it just, like, ruins their whole week.
Yeah.
And I think, quality of service is probably very important as well.
Yep. Hallmark holidays, we've got it written down here as well.
Yeah.
Trying to think how we shoehorned this in. But yeah, I guess we were talking a bit about looking at the brand, and like we are obviously going to be selling some Valentine's coffee, but like holidays or something that seems so American. Happy holidays, but seasonal coffee, all these kind of things, and like leaning into that as a sales tactic almost is something that we've done quite a lot of, and it's probably not been initially something we've done in a disingenuous way. It wasn't like financially motivated. Probably it was really a summer banger we brought in, and it was more about like an emotive thing for like, it's summer, let's have like a fun launch. But we obviously have for the past 3 or 4 years done Christmas stuff.
I know the Christmas ones sell so well. Like that definitely works.
Yeah, oh definitely. And I think,
and it's such a quite a basic concept of like naughty and nice.
All right, I thought it was a very clever concept.
It's clever, but it really works.
Yeah, it's really worked because everyone has to buy 2 instead of 1.
Yeah.
And then this year we had the banger as well, so you have to buy 3 instead of 1.
Yeah.
But obviously we're now doing, like, we did a Valentine's one before, I think, but I'm just like, as a small business, you got to try and take your chances where you see them. And we talked briefly before the podcast about like there's no shame in trying to sell as much coffee as you can. I sometimes think there is that slight element of shame about like trying to oversell yourself as a brand or a business, where it can be seen as a bit seedy to be leaning into stuff like this. But I kind of think, if our mission is to try and engage as many people as we can, to try and then, the more coffee we sell, and inevitably the more coffee we can buy, and that's not a bad thing. We don't want to be buying dribs and drabs from the likes of Nelson Ramirez in Honduras. We want to be buying pallets or containers eventually. That's the aspiration, quite a big aspiration. But I just think our job on the ground over here is to try and find out what the customer really wants, try and pitch it in a way that gives them value, but also brings value to us, so we can have,
we want to know what coffee shop owners want.
Yeah, like and subscribe. No, we definitely. I think it's going back to the start. It probably is different for every person.
Yeah,
we have a list of names on a whiteboard in the roastery, top secret stuff, of all the cafes we would love to work with this year. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, you go through them and you look at them in quite specific detail, and you do realize that every one of them is a completely different business with completely different needs, and that's probably where it is. Like, you almost have to decode each one by one. Like, what is X Cafe in, how was it, Halifax? That's the place in England, isn't it? What do they want? Like, do they want a free grinder, or are they going to get a free grinder from someone in return for regular coffee sales? I don't know. Something that we've struggled to do as a small business is like offer free equipment in exchange for, as a value exchange. I find that it's quite challenging. But then again, you speak to mainly different wholesale managers and of different roasteries, and it's interesting to see, again, they all approach sales in such a different way, and they understand the mechanics of the economics of running or selling coffee differently, and I find that fascinating. So I'm sure there's, I don't know how many thousands of roasteries there are in
I know it's
Scotland,
such a saturated market now. I think it's hard for everyone to get their bit.
Very hard. And then, like, I guess you think about the quality of all of those operators. It's like in Edinburgh alone, you have so many fantastic roasters. And so, you do have to think, like, how do we stand out? And that's really the message we've been trying to answer for the past couple of weeks, probably, is, like, why would someone come to Cairngorm?
Yeah.
Do you think we've got an answer for that yet? I
don't think so. And then we went to that show yesterday and everyone was like, oh, so you're based in the Cairngorms? And we're like, oh, you don't even know where we are.
Thanks very much. Cheers. That's always, I mean, I remember when we started Cairngorm, I was always like, but like, what if someone's like, I'll meet you at Cairngorm, and then they show up in like Aviemore? Like, what? I'm like, of course someone's not going to leave Edinburgh to meet a friend in Aviemore, just who's meeting for a coffee. But we've not experienced that for a wee while, which is quite cool. Hannah said that should be a ambition for 2024 is to make sure everybody in Scotland knows that we are a coffee roastery in Edinburgh.
Yeah, and we don't grow the beans in the Cairngorms.
Don't grow the beans there. We did used to roast them there, which is where the name comes from. But then again, you think about, like, so the Cairngorms up the Highlands of Scotland, like, what does the customer want up there? How developed is the specialty market? Becoming more and more developed.
Yeah, definitely.
We're chatting on Friday, actually. We're recording this on Wednesday. In a couple of days, we've got Brogan, who, so when this comes out, will have already been here, and maybe we'll have watched this in some kind of Inception world. But I can't wait to speak to him and see, like, what do his customers want. Like, you know, because we're down here in an industrial estate, essentially. I'm not glorifying it very much. But, you know, we're trying to guess what he wants in forests. It's like, how do we know?
But
we need to get up there.
Like, our customers in Edinburgh, I'd say, are very varied. Like, we have a lot of tourists, we have a lot of business people, whereas his customers will be probably just regulars that want consistency.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe because we're got a bigger market in Edinburgh, people want more variety.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess to an extent there's more options for people to spend their money on coffee. So it's probably why you can get more niche operators. Like we talk about Lowdown way too much on this podcast, but we're massive fans, and I think they're a perfect example of like a very niche operator where, you know, they are very driven on quality and they know exactly the kind of coffees they want to work with, and they hit that market extremely well. Whilst we probably are being a little bit more of a broader brushstroke, still really care about quality, but, you know, we're trying to, you know, maybe we're trying to do too much. Maybe that's the answer.
I think one of your like brand words is like humble.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably like we're humble, but then we also can do like the variety of coffees that are a bit more like pricey.
Yeah. The Wonder Series. And again, that's something we launched last year. And it's been really interesting because you do get some diehards who will only buy from us when we launch a new Wonder coffee. I guess that's interesting. The wider topic maybe for a future podcast for me is always about like how far do you have to go to damage your brand almost? Like when do you widen the scope to trying to cater for so many people that you know, cheapen aspects of what you're trying to do. Like having a focus is always a mantra that was instilled in me by my dad, where he was like, you know, keep focused, keep it simple, don't you know, try and do too much. And something I value very highly when you go into like a restaurant, for example, if there's like 100 things on the menu, it's like the first thing Gordon Ramsay does in Kitchen Nightmares. Like you've got too much stuff on the menu, he presents them like 8 great dishes. And everyone's like, that looks so much better. Yeah. Of course it does. Like keep things like simple, quality, focused. Yeah, maybe that's the answer. Keep it simple. Just strip out our offer list and just sell like 2 coffees.
I think Hannah would be very happy about that.
Bit boring.
Yeah.
We must be getting close. Oh my! Oh, we got a minute. Sweet. Is there anything you want to talk about?
Round up.
Have we summarised it well?
Here are 3 things that we don't know if the customer wants. What would that be?
Yeah, well, I guess for me, the first one is like, where do they see value? Is it in quality? Is it in service? Is it in price?
I think it's everything.
How much do they value the brand? Do they want variety or do they want consistency? Do they want a Valentine's coffee in store now? I don't know. Well, it's quite a weirdly worded question. Here are 3 things that we don't know if the customer wants. Don't know if the customer wants to hear a podcast from Cairngorm, but they're getting it anyway.
Or watch a YouTube video on us.
Which reminds me, if you're listening to this on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, please do jump onto our YouTube now, subscribe, like, help us reach that monetary gain of being monetized, which we're never going to make, and I keep on saying as a joke. It's an endless question, and as we've said, it is different for every person. But we would love to hear from people. I'd love to know if you're a cafe, if you're a cafe, probably is one of the key ones, and you're looking for coffee. Is it going off? And you buy coffee. Like, what do you put value in? Is it the quality of the coffee? Is it the price? If you are a patron of a specialty coffee shop or a normal coffee shop, a cafe, Starbucks, what do you put your value in? Is it consistency? Is it being able to try lots of different stuff? Is it the brew methods they use? Is it the ambient light? Very big question.
Yeah.
Complex question. It's a lot of variables there. That's it then. That's it for this week. Been very nice to be here. Talking on the old mics again. Thanks for listening along, and hopefully we will be back next Monday.
See you then.
See you soon.